It was really hard.
3 days before our wedding, we got married.
That conversation I'm never going to share.
Forget the Oprah interview. Forget the Netflix tears. Forget the endless speeches about privacy, trauma, and persecution. What unfolded inside Courtroom Number 7 didn't just dent the Sussex fairy tale, it detonated it. January 2026. London didn't wake up gray that morning. It woke up heavy. The kind of sky that feels like it knows something you don't. Crowds flooded toward the Supreme Court of Justice, not for a routine legal skirmish, but to witness one of two outcomes: the collapse of modern royalty, or the exposure of the most carefully protected lie of the century. Inside the courtroom, the air was unbreathable. Journalists packed every seat, knuckles white around pens, cameras forbidden but memories sharp. Everyone understood this wasn't about headlines anymore. This was about bloodlines. Then he walked in. Tom Bower. Silver-haired, razor-eyed. The kind of man who doesn't speculate, he ends careers. In investigative journalism, Bower isn't controversial. He's feared. Billionaires, politicians, media barons, those who've crossed his path all learn the same lesson. When Bower speaks under oath, he brings receipts carved in stone. This time, his target wasn't power. It was royal DNA. Prince Harry sat rigid in the spectator section, shoulders tense beneath his tailored suit. This wasn't the defiant prince who once raged against tabloids. This was something else entirely. A man staring into a void, sensing a truth rushing toward him like a tidal wave with no shore in sight. Beside him, Meghan Markle maintained her Hollywood composure. Chin lifted, back straight. But her hands told a different story. Clenched so tightly around her handbag her knuckles had gone ghost white. The mask was holding.
Barely.
Bower didn't warm up the room. He didn't revisit bridesmaid drama or palace feuds. He went straight for the jugular. The true bloodline of Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor. The words didn't echo. They landed. And then came two names that cracked the courtroom wide open. Trevor Engelson. Operation Cuckoo. A ripple of shock tore through the room. Legal team stiffened. Journalists froze. This wasn't internet gossip. This wasn't tabloid poison. This was sworn testimony from a man whose career is built on destroying false narratives brick by brick. Harry's face drained of color. His mouth parted slightly, as if trying to speak to a memory that suddenly made sense. Doubts he'd buried. Timelines he'd ignored.
Questions he never wanted to ask.
In real time, you could see the pieces clicking into place, and the picture they formed was unbearable. Meghan didn't argue. She didn't glare. She didn't smirk. She broke. Tears spilled freely as she stood, abruptly, pushing past stunned security. She didn't walk out. She fled. The wooden courtroom door slammed behind her with a sound so sharp it felt like punctuation, the final period on a modern Cinderella myth. The room sat frozen. Why would Tom Bower choose this moment? What evidence could force a journalist of his stature to risk everything? Career, freedom, legacy? Then Bower spoke again. Operation Cuckoo. Not a metaphor. A file. A meticulously assembled dossier years in the making. And as Bower stood there, calm as a surgeon before incision, one thing became painfully clear. This wasn't a family dispute. This wasn't a media war. This was the beginning of a constitutional reckoning, and Harry and Meghan were no longer controlling the narrative. The executioner had arrived. And the fairy tale? It was already bleeding out. Tom Bower didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Silence was already doing the damage for him. He stood there, hands steady, eyes cold, and reminded the court who he was. Not a blogger chasing clicks, not a pundit selling outrage, but a former lawyer and one of Britain's most methodical investigative journalists. A man who understands one sacred rule: never allege what you can't prove. Under cross-examination from Meghan's elite legal team, Bower didn't flinch. No dramatics. No speculation. Just documents. He asked the clerk to display a timeline on the courtroom screen.
Dates.
Locations. Movements. Overlaps. He called it the record of coincidences. The story the public was sold was clean and cinematic. Meghan divorces Trevor Engelson in 2013. Reinvents herself. Meets Harry in 2016. Falls madly in love. A straight line from Hollywood to royalty. Bauer's timeline was anything but straight. According to verified hotel records, flight manifests, phone logs, and testimony from former staff, the relationship between Meghan and Trevor didn't end cleanly. It faded ambiguously. Lingering communication. Quiet meetings. Connections that never fully snapped. The courtroom leaned forward. Between mid-2016, when Meghan first met Harry, and their whirlwind engagement announcement, Bauer highlighted unexplained gaps in her filming schedule in Toronto. Days unaccounted for. Travel not logged publicly. Absences explained vaguely, if at all. Those gaps, Bauer said, coincided with unpublicized movements by one specific individual, Trevor Engelson. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. This wasn't framed as romance. It wasn't painted as infidelity in the tabloid sense. Bauer was careful, almost surgical. He described it as overlapping realities, the kind that create dangerous ambiguity when power, status, and timing collide. Then came the palace angle. Bauer revealed something far more disturbing than secret meetings: the silence of palace insiders. Servants, security staff, gatekeepers who had spent their entire lives protecting royal secrets. People who don't speak, not out of fear, but out of duty. They spoke to Bauer, not because they wanted drama, but because, in his words, what they witnessed could no longer be rationalized as coincidence. Bauer posed a series of questions to the court, questions that hit harder because they were grounded in protocol, not rumor. Why was Archie's birth announcement handled differently from every royal child before him? Why did traditional royal physicians refuse to sign the initial birth documentation, breaking centuries of precedent? Why were details amended months later? Quietly, without explanation. These weren't accusations. They were procedural anomalies. And anomalies are poison to institutions built on ritual. Then Bauer turned his attention, briefly, devastatingly, to Harry. Not as a villain, as a casualty. He painted a portrait of a man so desperate to protect his family that he stopped asking questions. A prince who traded scrutiny for devotion. A son who burned bridges with his father and brother because he believed he was defending truth, not obscuring it. According to Bauer, internal security reports, commissioned before the wedding, flagged unresolved connections from Meghan's past. Not emotional warnings. Risk assessments. The kind generated when reputations, succession, and national legitimacy are involved. Those reports, Bauer claimed, were softened, downplayed, buried.
Why?
Because confronting them would have detonated the fairy tale before it could even be crowned. Then came the moment that broke Harry. Bauer looked directly at him, not theatrically, not cruelly, and said quietly, "The truth does not belong to anyone. It exists whether we acknowledge it or not. My role is not to create it, but to remove it from the cellar where it was hidden."
Harry didn't respond.
He didn't need to. The man who had walked away from palace life, from military protection, from his country, was now being forced to confront the possibility that every sacrifice he made was built on assumption, not certainty. And that assumption had a ticking clock. Because the next phase of Bauer's testimony wasn't about feelings. It was about biology. And biology, unlike PR, doesn't bend. As the court adjourned for recess, the realization settled over London like fog rolling in from the Thames. This wasn't about love. It wasn't about race. It wasn't about media cruelty. It was about timing, about power, about whether the most protected child in the world was protected because he was royal, or because the truth about him was too dangerous to surface. And somewhere beneath the polished speeches and glossy documentaries, one question refused to die. Did Harry run from the monarchy to save his family, or to escape the moment when the palace would finally demand proof? Tom Bower saved the most dangerous part for last. Not accusations, not names, but consequences. He reminded the court that none of this mattered unless one question was answered, and answered cleanly. Who is Archie Harrison Mountbatten-Windsor's biological father? If the allegations surrounding Trevor Engelson were false, there was a simple way to end the storm instantly. One transparent, independently witnessed DNA test. One document. One press conference.
Done.
But that moment never came. And in the monarchy, silence is never accidental. Bower turned to history. Succession law doesn't care about love stories or Netflix edits. It cares about blood. The act of settlement is ruthless in its simplicity. Without royal blood, there is no place in the line. No exception. No mercy clause. If Archie were proven not to be Harry's biological son, the implications wouldn't be emotional, they'd be constitutional. Titles would vanish. Placement in the line of succession would be void. Parliament would be forced to intervene. And that's when Bower dropped the detail that made the room audibly gasp. According to sources he described as palace-adjacent and historically reliable, concerns were quietly raised immediately after Archie's birth in 2019. Not accusations, questions. Enough questions to justify what Bower called a routine health verification. A test. Not public. Not ceremonial.
Sealed.
The alleged results, Bower said, were never released. Not to the press, not to Parliament, not even to the wider family. Stored away, protected, inaccessible.
Why?
Because 2019 was already a year the monarchy could barely survive. Prince Andrew. Epstein. Public trust eroding by the week. One more scandal, especially one involving paternity and succession, could have pushed the institution into free fall. According to Bower's theory, the palace chose the oldest royal strategy of all: containment through silence. But silence has a cost. Bower argued that once Meghan understood the palace would never publicly open that box, power shifted. The institution that could destroy her also became incapable of challenging her. From that moment on, interviews, documentaries, accusations all flowed freely, shielded by the monarchy's fear of self-destruction. And Harry, Bower suggested, may be the most tragic figure in the entire saga. A man who believed absolutely, who burned bridges absolutely, who defended absolutely. If the allegations are false, Harry has endured exile, humiliation, and estrangement for nothing. If they are true, or even partially true, then he has unknowingly defended something that could dismantle his own identity as a father, a son, and a prince. Either way, there is no victory. The court was reminded of one brutal reality: defamation law. If Tom Bower were lying, a lawsuit would already be underway. His testimony was delivered under oath. Perjury carries prison time. Careers don't survive it. Yet no lawsuit came. No injunction. No emergency rebuttal. No DNA document waved triumphantly before cameras. Only retreat. Only distance. Only silence from Montecito. Bower didn't claim this proved guilt. He claimed it proved fear. Fear of what discovery would uncover if the courts forced transparency. And then he asked the question no one in the room wanted to hear out loud. If Harry truly believes Archie is his biological son, why does he look like a man who has just lost everything? Photographs from that day show it clearly. Not anger, not defiance, but devastation. A man staring at the possibility that the story he built his life around may not belong to him. For Archie, the stakes are crueler still. An innocent child caught in adult power games, media warfare, and legal ambiguity. If the allegations are wrong, he grows up shadowed by doubt he never earned. If they are right, his entire sense of self will be rewritten by forces far beyond his control. And for the monarchy, this may be the ultimate modern test. An institution forged in bloodlines now faces a world of DNA kits, subpoenas, and public demand for proof. Tradition no longer outruns technology. Ceremony no longer silences data. Bauer ended not with a declaration, but a warning. Truth doesn't need permission. It doesn't need timing. And it doesn't care who it protects or destroys. Whether these allegations collapse under scrutiny or explode into confirmed fact, one thing is already irreversible. The fairy tale is gone. Harry and Meghan are no longer symbols of escape or rebellion. They are the center of a question that won't die, about truth, identity, and whether love alone can outrun biology and law. The courtroom session ended, but the reckoning didn't. Because if this story moves forward through Parliament, through subpoenas, through compelled evidence, there will be no safe silence left. Only answers. And in a monarchy built on lineage, answers are everything.